Hey friends, thanks for taking time to listen in on a conversation I had with Mat Coch. This is bonus material from a previously released conversation I had with Matt. I recommend listening to that episode first if you haven't already. Our sound engineer thought a lot of good content was left on the cutting room floor because we were trying to be mindful of your time. So we decided to share this bonus material now. But before we get to our conversation, I need to ask, can you help us out? If you haven't already, please take a moment to follow us and give us 5 stars on your favorite podcast app, as well as share this episode with other F1 fans. We know our growth is because of you, and the guys and I thank you. Hope you enjoy our conversation. I feel like we could do that within our sport. Maybe we could set an example for the world in that there are other industries that also have very similar challenges, and they can start to see that it can be done, and it requires people taking courageous steps, and like people like you, like speaking up and being a safe place for people to know, like, hey, just because I'm a guy doesn't mean I'm not aware of this, and I can be there as a voice from my role and speaking up like this as you're doing that, and hopefully others will take that lead as well, and we can 10 years from now say things are different. I hope it doesn't take 10 years, but it may, because as we know, people changing, it's not, they have to choose to change. I have a couple of friends who are counselors and they're like, you can't force anybody to change. They have to choose it themselves, but we can be those examples inside the paddock. And I would say, if anything, the fact that you are a traditionalist, as you said, but also see the need for the sport to make progress is a very healthy and beneficial thing, that we need more people like you that says, here are the things that we need to hold on to, but here are the areas where we need to change.
Yeah, well, it's very nice of you to say. You don't get many compliments in this game, so I'll take that. I'm going to get it framed and put up on the wall.
Go for it. I'd be happy.
I think it's a really good point, because there are things I think in Formula One that shouldn't change. Grand Prix distance should always be around 2 hours. That's changed over the years, but about 2 hours is a good medium. Going to as many different countries as possible. Maybe 24 is too many.
24 is too much. I don't know how anybody does that. I think we need to do no more than 18. I would even be fine with 16. And I don't even have to travel, and I'm exhausted by it.
The problem is the extra 6 or 8 events. If you can charge 50 million each, that's
I know.
a whole lot of money on the bottom dollar. But yeah, there's things that shouldn't change, but there's things that absolutely should. And I love the idea that Formula One can be that bastion of light, so to speak, of showing that it can be done, because I mean, hell, we've shown that you can put the engine in the back of a car and it makes it go faster. You can turn an airplane wing upside down and make a car go faster. We've done all these things that drive, the industry forward, not just motorsport, but broader industry as well.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. We have now I would say one of the biggest platforms in the history of the sport. Would it not be amazing if we were, instead of a thermometer, we were a thermostat for culture? I think that'd be awesome.
There's a great line. I'm stealing that line. That is a fabulous line.
I took it from a friend of mine who says that, it makes that distinction, but never in this context. So I can't remember which friend that said it. We're both kind of plagiarizing. It's okay. But yeah.
But no, it's a fabulous point. It really is, because motorsport's fabulous. Motorsport was explained to me many, many years ago that Formula One, we look at it as though it's a car race. It's not. It's a business, and it's a change management business. Everyone in Formula One, humans by default are very risk and change resistant to change. We like things to be predictable, consistent, not to change, not to be very much the same. We love routine. We go to bed at the same time. We get out of bed, we have a coffee, we read the newspaper, we go to, everything is very much a routine, and we're very comfortable and very happy with that. Change is a massive disruption. So, if you go into Formula One, even the most risk-averse, change-resistant person is still, by most standards, very open to risk, very open to change. So it's a completely different mentality. I would love to see that creep into the social side of the sport. But the worst thing I think we could do is force it and make it artificial. If we start doing things like, having quotas, I don't want there to be a 50-50 split. If there is, that's brilliant. I want the best person, regardless of who that is, the best person in that role.
I mean, that goes back to what I said. I don't want to be given a job because I'm a woman. I want to be given a job because I'm the best person for the job. And I don't want my gender to hold me back. I wanted to instead you to say she has the capacity, the capability to do this. And therefore, we're going to take the risk on her and bring her into that spot. That's what I want. And I think most women would agree with me on that. And I think that's how we maintain fairness to all people. Because I do think that in a desire to equal the playing field, we have to be very careful that men don't feel that they are attacked in the process and diminished, because I think we all bring something valuable to the table, and let's all work together versus feeling like, well, because you've handed something to me, you are therefore less than, or I'm taking from you. That's contrary to how I think we should be as a society. And when you talk about not being manufactured, I agree, because everybody will smell that inauthenticity and it's not going to inspire. It's just a marketing ploy, and that's not going to change anybody's mind.
And there's already a little bit of a hint of that in the paddock, that, there are individuals that are there because they've been placed there for one reason or another. And there is a little bit of an aura that goes around with that. Again, I'm not going to name names. It's not fair on them, but there's already a little bit of that. Conversely, there's this whole wave of new interest coming into the sport, and that's introducing a whole wave of new people, which is also fabulous, because suddenly we're seeing new names, new faces, new voices. Speaking sort of specifically of the media room here, because they're the people that I deal with day to day, but even within the teams, you're starting to see different faces, different accents as well, which is great. And that's from Formula One as an organization through the teams, even down to some of the officials. I was walking around the track in Abu Dhabi on the test day on Tuesday, and just looking at some of the officials. The diversity there was fabulous, for a multitude of reasons. The different height, weight, size, color, whatever. You pick a differentiator, and there was something there. It was great to see, particularly when you consider we were in the Emirates, which is perhaps known for that sort of stuff. So it's great to see that is changing. But I'm with you. We're sort of still probably 10 years minimum away. It's going to be a long, long job to solve that. But at least we're not going insane by doing the same thing anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even when I feel like you mentioned this earlier, the safety aspect of the sport, and when drivers were dying and they had to have this reckoning about that, I don't think that the changes all happened overnight. It took time. And all the loss of life, the maiming and injuring of people in the interim as the progress was being made was really hard. And people had to live with those consequences. And I think that in that sense, the cultural change that we're discussing now, maybe 10 years from now, we'll be able to say thank you to the people who are doing what they're doing. Just like we're looking at now those who made the decision to stand up and say, hey, we have to increase the safety of the sport. That is necessary for us to continue moving forward. And at the time, they were not well appreciated by their peers because it was seen as changing the value proposition of the sport. And so we just have to fall in line of those predecessors who stood up in that context into this, and know that our principles, if they're right, will stand the test of time.
I think you do yourself a disservice here, because your Formula One knowledge is exceptional.
Thanks.
You, without explicitly saying as much, you've just basically outlined the latter part of Jackie Stewart's career. He was a massive champion for safety. He got a lot of backlash. There's a fabulous journalist through the 50s, 60s, and 70s, Dennis Jenkinson, wrote for Motorsport magazine, widely regarded as the preeminent journalist of that era. He was a co-driver with Sterling Moss in the Mille won that race. I said, don't you know all this?
Well, I have to say, Dick is going to be so glad that you said that, because he's my Obi-Wan when it comes to this. We did an earlier episode in the podcast where we did F1 safety and the progress, and he went through and outlined it. Like I told you offline, I feel like our podcast is just us turning on a recorder for the conversations the guys and I have, and that I look to them as the veterans of the sport to just like as a fire hydrant, giving me as much information. So this is maybe why I also relate to you, Matt. I think you're a Formula One nerd, and so am I. I just don't have as much tenure as you. And so like when you're talking about these different things, like, okay, I'm like cataloging in my head, go research that, go read this. So we talked about the Grand Prix book. I think that I was the nerd who was like, can I just buy all the years? And then I looked at how much money that was going to cost me. And I thought, yeah, I may have to put that on like a long-term wish list that I could finance that dream. But I'm not like you being able to recall data and numbers at the level that you did. I think I come at it from the more my policy and political background, the human aspect of it is what resonates with me. But I love people like you who know this stuff like the back of your hand. So thank you for the compliment. That means you're the substitute teacher who just came in and said that my regular teacher has been doing a good job, and he'll be so proud of that. But yeah, we would love one day to have Sir Jackie Stewart on the show. I think Dick would probably pass out if we somehow found a way to get him on and talk to him. But I do think this is probably for me, one of the reasons why I wanted us to do the podcast when John invited Dick and me to do this was that I'm very grateful for the people who have brought the sport to the point that it is today. And if I just come in at the point that I do and think, oh, this is what existed, it's a very egotistical way to approach what I'm seeing. Instead, if I can spend the time and learn where it has been, the people that have positively affected the sport, and the people who have negatively affected the sport, areas that the sport had grown and what they've contributed, that helps me appreciate what I get to see on track every Grand Prix weekend. And so like, I think it's just valuable for any of us to go deeper than it's just cars going fast. I think we do a disservice to everybody in the industry when we just look at it like that.
And who's to say the way that I consume the sport is correct?
That's right.
You consume the sport is correct. You know, there's a whole generation of people getting into Formula One now, and there's this degree of the old guard gatekeeping. Say, oh, well, you don't know about Jackie Stewart and Jackie X and you know, Nino Farina, and you know, who cares? Seriously, who cares? If they want to go and find out about that, fabulous, let's help them. But if they want to follow Formula One by, you know, stalking the drivers on social media, that's still another Formula One fan. That's still another person keeping me in the job. Thank you very much.
That's right.
So just because I grew up consuming the sport through books and television, it doesn't mean that consuming it through Instagram and TikTok and whatever other platforms are out there is a bad thing or is the wrong thing to do. Goes back to, you mentioned before about the culture in drivers and what we see on track. It's very much the same thing. The new generation or the younger generation consumes content differently, because once upon a time we only had linear broadcasts, terrestrial television, pay TV, whatever it was, usually terrestrial television because Bernie wanted terrestrial television, because more eyeballs means more money. Now you've got over-the-top services. You've got second screen experiences. There is no right way to consume Formula One. And who the hell are we to stand there and say, no, that's not how you do it? You know, it's like, there is no right or way wrong. It's not like, you know, doing a paint by numbers where you, oh, that's the wrong color green. No. If you want to support Carlos Sainz because he's got a cool road car, or if you want to support Charles Leclerc because you like his dog, cool, do it. Absolutely. Let's have Leo versus, I forget what Lewis Hamilton's dog's name is, but let's have
Roscoe. Roscoe.
Oh, there we go, Roscoe. Let's have Leo versus Roscoe meme wars on social media and really get into it.
Yeah.
Let's take it to the extreme. Let's create some content that's engaging, that's interesting, that speaks to people in their own language. And this is something that Formula One's been quite good at since Liberty Media took over, because it understands the power of social media. Bernie Ecclestone didn't. You know, he's 94 off the top of my head. You know, he's a used car salesman, cut his teeth in the wrong part of London or the right part of London, depending who you speak to. You know, there's this old story that he was a getaway driver in the Great Train Robbery. There's all these wonderful stories about Bernie. He was very set in his ways. You know, he built brand value through exclusivity, and that means that no one else can have it. You can't get into the paddock. There's only this many events. I mean, I long for the days of 16 and 17 events, but you know, that built a value to the sport, but it also inherently gatekept, particularly in our parts of the world where the sport isn't necessarily on television at the most user-friendly time of the day. I'm regularly working through. I'll do night shift for 26
Right.
a year, and I imagine that you guys must be getting out of bed at like 3 a.m.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's very very much the same thing. But we do the late nights, you do the early mornings.
Right.
By having that model where you can only watch it on TV, it keeps the likes of us. It makes it harder for us to get into. How do we get our friends into it? Trying to convince them, get out of bed at 3 a.m. It's great. Is it really? Or, hey, did you see that meme of Lewis Hamilton and George Russell wearing silly Christmas jumpers? That's kind of funny because we've all got that hideous Christmas jumper. It's relatable. It's there whenever we pick up our phone. So that's, again, it goes to the F1 Academy stuff. It's a good thing. How can having more people into the sport be a bad thing? And I'm not going to sit here and say, you need to read this book and watch that video and listen to this podcast. I mean, other than this podcast, obviously.
Thanks.
But there's no right and wrong. It's all shades of grey and it's all good. I'm not sure there's 50 shades of grey. There might be 50.
Oh, no. We won't go to 50 shades of grey. No. That's not us. But I do like that. There's a level of graciousness that as a longtime fan, you, as you said, not gatekeeping, I think is very good. I think that there's a lot there that I would love to unpack and maybe, again, we really have to have you back on, Matt, if you have time. I would love to unpack some of this with you because I wonder where the balance is, I guess is the question for me. And what I would love is maybe less races, but then increase the quality. So not quantity, but increased quality. And I think what you brought in about the social media is an element about the quality. I kind of alluded to it. We just do a podcast and it's exhausting to meet the calendar constraints that are requested. It very easily can become where it's exhausting to even sit and watch the race because you're having to think about what do we need to do? We have to process everything. It has only made me realize how much more respect I have for those within the paddock and, as they all call it, the traveling circus, and that I'm not even doing all that. And here you are sitting here with me for almost 2 hours after being on the road for 3 weeks. And the human toll, I guess, is what I wonder about it. But instead, is there ways that we can scratch that racing itch by highlighting more of F2, F3, F4, F1 Academy, all the feeder series, all the other types of racing, and really show why we say F1 is the pinnacle? And also realizing that even this higher profile on social media, as good as it is, and as much as I love it, it's also taking a toll on our drivers. And when I just keep thinking about, I am only just sitting on the couch watching for 2 hours. They're like running the race for 2 hours and then immediately having to come and talk to you guys in the media. And, all that, I just wonder, everyone talks about sustainability for the environment. I keep wondering sustainability for the industry and for the sport is what we're doing. So I'm not saying go back to the Bernie era by any form or fashion. I'm just saying where are the guardrails? We're protecting the actual sport itself from not getting out of hand. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I just have questions.
There's sort of two types of people in the paddock. You've got what are called sort of lifers, which I guess I'm one of those because you go into Formula One and then you just never come out. Because it's all you want to do, it's all you're willing to do. And then you've got the people who come in for a couple of years, get that experience, travel the world, do all that sort of stuff, and then realize that there's more to life. There's more that they want to do. Because the one thing that as you travel more, as Formula One becomes more onerous, it's very difficult to have a life outside of Formula One. I used to play football. I don't play football anymore. I don't have time. It's not fair of me to commit to a team or a club because I can't be there for more than half the games. I used to race slot cars every Friday night. As dumb as that sounds, I loved it. It was great fun. It was my social, I don't go to the pub or whatever. It was my social. I don't do that anymore. I don't have time. I used to love riding my bike, do 300 or 400 kilometers a week on my bike. I don't do that anymore. I don't have time. Even silly things like holding down a stable relationship and not trivial. You have to put the effort in. For others who perhaps aren't as far along in life as I am, just having a relationship is hard work. How do you meet people? There are a lot of relationships that happen within the sport, but it's very all-encompassing, dominates your life, dominates my thinking. I will, at least once a week, I'll go to bed with my head rolling around some idea and An hour later, it'll still be rolling. So I get up and work for 3 or 4 hours. It happened to me last night. Finished work at 4 o'clock this morning because as I went to bed, something cropped up. It was actually the Rwanda Grand Prix announcement stuff that cropped up just as I went to bed. Got up, and then I had another idea burning because I got some information about the Andretti Cadillac stuff. I was like, well, I'm not going to let that go because if I let that go, someone else will get it. So as a result, rather than writing one story that should take me maybe an hour, I was up for 4 or 5 hours. And that's not unusual. And okay, I'm a little bit unusual in that I'm doing it from Australia. But what I'm doing is not unique to me. It's just the time zones I do it in are unique. You know, there's a media room full of people doing the same thing. There's teams of people that are doing the same thing. You know, you just look at what Williams did from sort of Sao Paulo, Las Vegas, whatever, the hours they put in. And these aren't guys who fly business class. These aren't guys who are on £4 million a year. These are guys who are mechanics. They'll be on pretty close to minimum wage.
Really?
Because they're not well paid. It's working in Formula One by and large isn't going to make you a rich person. You know, it's the old adage to make a small fortune in motorsport, start with a large one. And that's changing if you're in the ownership side of it now. But one interesting thing that the cost cap has had is that it's starting to squeeze the prices of people. So you get a lot of brain drain because people who, you know, bright engineers who perhaps aren't lifers get opportunities to go into other industries. They get paid more because Formula One teams can't afford to pay them those big headline salaries anymore because they're constrained by the cost cap.
Wow. I had no idea.
I mean, you're never going to lose Adrian Newey, obviously. He's alive.
Sure.
But some of the younger guys that come out of university, they've got these bright ideas, hugely talented people, might do 2 or 3 years, get the experience, get the fact that they've got Formula One experience on their resume, because that's still a huge thing. Shows you can think, to react, work under pressure, all those sorts of things. Do that for a couple of years, then get out and go into aerospace or something else. That's quite common. Many years ago, I did some engineering work. One of the guys I worked with was ex-McLaren for exactly that reason. Worked there for a few years, got it on his resume and left. And that's becoming more and more common these days because Formula One is just so... You said it is exhausting. I don't remember the last time I got 8 hours sleep a night.
Okay, yeah, we're going to have you on again because I have so many questions after that. That's like I always wondered how the non-visible team members were impacted by all of this. And what you talked about, the social aspect, the personal life aspect, I kind of assumed. But when you talk about the financials and the non-lifer, not only does it draw my attention to them and their individual impact, you also have to wonder, what does that mean for the innovation, technological, the institutional memory that's needed if you don't have people who are matriculating up? And that eventually it's just going to be a regurgitation of just disposable people. You see that in corporate environments everywhere. You've given me a lot to think about. Okay.
There's so much in Formula One. It's not, and this is the fabulous thing. You know, we're sitting here talking about there's so many different ways that you can consume Formula One. We haven't spoken about anything on track.
Right.
We've been speaking for 2 hours and we haven't spoken about anything on track.
Yeah.
So it's a fabulous thing about Formula One. There's so much to unpack and you can be interested in any stream of that. And, you know, the business and politics and finances particularly interests me, but there's no right or wrong. It's just all good.
Right. Well, if the audience could only see the list of questions I haven't even asked you yet, they would be like, oh, wow, they could have talked for another 4 or 5 hours. But we'll just do that at a different time. We'll catch a couple of more hours. Once you've hopefully you've got some sleep. I know you said you don't get 8 hours anymore, but hopefully you'll find some 8-hour increments and we can reconnect, especially with the guys. I would love to hear their perspective on some of this and then posing some of the questions to you, but I really can't tell you enough. Thank you for sharing your insights, being so gracious, being a traditionalist who wants progress within the sport and doesn't want to gatekeep and says everybody's welcome to really experience the sport the way it resonates with them. That's very unusual to hear that. So thank you for being that voice.
Thanks for having me on. I've thoroughly enjoyed chatting for God knows how long about the sport, but I love it. It's a passion of mine. It's more than a job. And yeah, anytime you want me back, just drop me a line and I'm happy to come and chat.
Awesome. Thank you.
Okay, friends, what did you think of our conversation? Drop me a line via email, Sabrina@2guysaGirlandF1.com. Can you help us out? If you haven't already, please take a moment to follow us and give us 5 stars on your favorite podcast app, as well as share this episode with other F1 fans. We know our growth is because of you, and the guys and I thank you. And with that, let me say, we'll keep talking and you can keep listening in, because we're just 2 guys, a girl, and F1. For John, Dick, and me, Sabrina, thanks for listening.